Hey folks, welcome back. This is the part 2 of my Pyrodrone Pyrocube build. This guy right here, this is a 5-inch box frame racing drone. Last we left off, we had motors, ESC, lower half of the frame, and the main discharge leads installed. People texting me already. I gotta turn this thing off. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and try to button up at least the top half of this thing, maybe get around a beta flight. I'm not really sure. Rumor has it our field is opening back up on this Saturday, so want to get out and get flying. So let's go ahead and flip this thing around. And get building. All right. Travis Stevens, nice of you to stop by. Ramathorn, welcome back. Drift, always a good time. Robert Lemp. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but welcome back, guys. Thanks for stopping by. And so this build series is basically soup to nuts, the entire build of this quad. Every time I get to beta flight, touch it with a soldering iron, the whole idea is to chronicle it with a live stream, and this will all be DVR'd so you can go back and view it all later. So anyways, like I said, we left off with motors, ESC, main discharge leads. Bottom plate is kind of just dangling here. That's just kind of how this frame is set up. We'll see how far we can get tonight. So, as we were last time, this is the iFlight Sussex 4-in-1 ESC. Ortlip, Robert Ortlip. Okay. Mini Me FPV, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see, where did I put that flight controller at? There it is, that's the guy. So the flight controller is the iFlight Sussex Twin G D. So it's a twin gyro setup. You can see here we've got gyro 1, gyro 2. And this is actually set up to be plug and play with a DJI FPV system. So it's kind of interesting, and it works just the same without DJI as it does with. So this is a pretty nice little setup. It does come with a bunch of different little cables. So you can, let's see, they got short cable, long cable, a unpinned cable to mate up to whatever ESC you want, but these are match set, so I'm going to go with the pre-made cables. And then it comes with this cable, which is a direct plug-in for the larger DJI FPV air units. But we're not going to be using that today, and we're just going to be using the short cable right here. So something we need to consider is how we're going to mount this to the top stack. Or to the center plate here. As you see, this is kind of open, so this frame's a little unique because it does put the ESC down in the basement as opposed to being up on top. All of it being up on top. There's no reason you couldn't build it all on top, but this is kind of how this is set up. This frame does have enough space that you could mount the Cadex Vista to it if that is something that you were interested in running. So here's some of the hardware I have. Now this this frame is all based on M3 hardware, but a lot of the 20x20 ESCs use M2 hardware. This will use M3 if you pull the rubber grommets out of it, if you wanted to roll that way, but I have some M2 hardware, so I'm going to use that. And a lot of times you can get away with just using the M2 hardware in the M3 holes, but I do have these little brass grommet spacer looking things that I'm going to use to kind of fill in the gap right there in the stack. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of drop this all in here like so. And this plate doesn't matter which way it goes, top, bottom, left, right, doesn't matter. So we'll just go ahead and stick our ESC, or sorry, our flight controller in here. And mount that bad boy up like so. And let's secure it with some of these M2 nylon nuts. And if you guys have any questions or you want to get my attention, just from your PC, type the @ sign and then start typing tweet FPV. It'll populate my name in there and go ahead and ask away. If you're interested in some more one-on-one help, check out my Discord. There should be a link in the video description. Helping out a lot of people there one-on-one with, well, let's face it, it's mostly FrSky access related stuff, because that whole mess has turned into just quite a big pain in the ass. And I figured I'd put a little background music on for you guys. If you like it, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you like it. If not, yeah, I can kill that stuff. But something better than just listen to me drone on the whole time. Get it? Drone. Ah, that sucked. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these cinched up. Now, with these rubber grommets, these silicone grommet things, there's a fine line between being not tight enough and too tight. So what you want to do, so I can zoom in on this. So what you want to do is when you got your stack kind of somewhat assembled, go ahead and kind of push down on the board. You want to see a little bit of a gap form, kind of equally on both sides, and then pull up on it. And you want to see a little bit of a gap created down here. This is actually a little bit on the tight side. Let's go ahead and back that off a little bit. Travis, thanks. Yeah, I was listening to he's a Twitch guy. His name's Harris Heller, but he's got a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of tips for streaming and things like that. He's got his own copyright-free playlist on Spotify, so that's what's running back here. What's a good DIY kit to build for the first timer? I'll be honest with you, the Tyro series of quads are pretty decent little packages. Start off with something large, like a 5-inch. 3-inch seems appealing for the newcomer flying, but sorry guys, I still have a bit of a cough. It's kind of difficult to build because they're pretty tight builds. So we need to take a little more tension off of these guys. And that should be, no, it's tighter here. That should be pretty good there. So you just want a little bit of squish. Let those rubber isolators do their job. Yeah, the Tyro, it's a good quad. The quality of components is kind of questionable, but the beauty of it is if you built it, you know how it went together and you know how it comes apart. So if something does die, which in this hobby, everything dies because we're just slamming stuff into concrete all the time, or grass or wherever. All right, guys, I'm gonna move this camera real quick. Bear with me. So everything's going to die, but at least if you built it yourself, which Tower kits aren't bad, and there's lots of hand-walked tutorials on YouTube about how to build them. I think that's probably about the best DIY kit. You know everything works together that you get. The only thing that they don't include is a receiver, so you do need to kind of plan around that. All right, so we got our flight controller mounted up. We'll have to get our ESC wire in there. Now, if you're using an ESC and flight controller that aren't kind of like a match set, it's it's a really good idea to make sure you have the two diagrams out and you're kind of following along and making sure that the wires are going the right place, especially if they come with pre-pin plugs. Nothing in this hobby is universal, so even though it may have plugs that fit on both ends, it's very unlikely that they're actually going to be electrically going to the correct places. And I have accidentally fried a flight controller that way once before. So, you know, I think I'm going to use that longer wire that came with this thing. I did a build of like I think a Tyro 79. It's like I think it's like a 2-inch whoop toothpick. It was a pretty good little quad. The camera died on it almost instantly, but Banggood was cool and they sent me a new one like right away. It actually came pretty quick. And the frame was a pretty tight build, especially for trying to figure out where the heck to put a receiver on it, you know. Plugging these in is like plugging in a USB cable, you know. You flip it around 4 times and then it finally goes in. Can they? There we go. Jeez, that was excessive. Okay. Got that in there. There we go. Got those two wired up. And I do like to take my my wires and kind of fold them back into the frame. Just kind of make it all nice and neat. All right. Let's see. Need something higher kV for this chunk. Well, yeah, it is kind of a chunker. But I don't know. These motors seem to work good. Yeah, I would like a little bit higher, like maybe like a 1900 kV. I've actually considered trying to put like 2207, like 2000, like 2300 kV motors on it and just scaling them down. But no, this is what I got. And these are pretty light motors, so hopefully that helps make up the difference a little bit. But this is a quite chunky frame. Flies nice though. Dang, it flies nice. You know what I said I wasn't going to do at the end of the last stream? Was forget that capacitor. And you know what? You guys are going to let me put it on there without doing that capacitor, weren't you? Alright. So let's go ahead and spark up the old Heiko. Yep. You know, nothing about the Tyro kits is stellar, but it all works, if that makes any sense. All right, so we're gonna solder up this capacitor. This is a 50 volt 450 microfarad capacitor by Rubicon. These are actually pretty good capacitors. Now you can't just grab any capacitor. You need to find a low ESR capacitor, and it's very hard to tell just by looking at them if they are low ESR. But this is what it came with, so I'm assuming they are. It'd be crazy if they weren't. So let's just kind of eyeball how far back we're going to put this little guy here. So about How about now? Maybe a little bit more like that. All right. Go ahead and snippy snip. All right. Tiny Hawk Freestyle is amazing how good that thing is. I mean, it is so much better than it should have been. I'm thoroughly impressed with it. But with that said, I have had to make 2 repairs to mine already. One was my fault, and the other one was, I'd say, not my fault. Had the camera quit on it already. And underneath all the little black schmoo that they put on the back of the camera where the wires go into it, it looks like they didn't solder the ground wire to the camera very well. So it was a really easy fix, but you know, kind of a pain in the butt still to get in there and have to fix it. But that was only after about maybe, I don't know, 50 flights ish, or 50 packs, so 25, about 25 flights. Yeah, Robert, we're gonna take care of that. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but the ground side of the capacitor is the striped end. It's also got the little negative signal symbol, and if you wire these up backwards, let me tell you what, it is kind of interesting. They basically explode. I wired a cap up backwards on some other project I was working on. It was like I was making like DC voltage converters for some LEDs. Again, just this hobby creeps into so much more of your life with soldering, and I wasn't paying attention. I was cranking these things out, and I was on like my 6th one, and I wired a cap up backwards, and I went to plug it in so I could adjust the voltage on it, and it gives you like 3 or 4 seconds of like false hope that everything's fine, and then it explodes and it blows this nasty, stinky, sticky gunk all over the place. Of course, it was all in my face, and couldn't get that smell out for quite a while. It was not a pleasant experience. I don't recommend it at all. And for those of you guys that are tuning in for the first time, my soldering iron is a Heiko 888D. I'm running it at 850 degrees, and I'm in the US, so we're using the Imperial system. And I run it at 850 no matter what I'm soldering. Yeah, if you've ever seen a YouTuber called Electro Boom, he has some pretty entertaining stuff. He basically just blows up capacitors all day long.
No, really.
But his showmanship is just top notch. So entertaining to watch him try to kill himself. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Go ahead and wrangle this thing with a zip tie now before we forget. Probably should put that zip tie on the other way. Redo that. Really should have done this before I put that flight controller on. I should probably just remove the flight controller, but it proved to be a little bit on the difficult side to install it in the first place. We always got the time to do it right the second time. A50 on your whips is perfectly fine. It's all about skill. Get in, get on, get out. pinch in these wires between the standoffs and the stack, or the frame plates here. There we go. Yeah, it's a bit of a skill to get in there and get the solder on the pad that fast. But the downside to running a cooler iron is you're in there a lot longer. And you end up warming up the entire board, and you start warming up other components next to what you're trying to solder. I'm going to keep grabbing that with the wrong screwdriver every stinking time. So the hotter you make it, the shorter amount of time you're on the pad. And I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their own method. This is what's been working for me for the last 12 years, 12 plus years. Let's see. Go ahead. I'll show that there. Okay, so that's in there nice and tight. We got our ESC, our flight controller mounted. This flight controller is a little different. It has a USB-C port on it. Because, like I said before, it is intended to work with the DJI FPV system. So let's go ahead and move on to the camera. I'm going to use, let's see, which camera mount am I going to use? I'm going to use this guy here. Gimme. I'm going to put a Runcam Racer Nano 2 in this build. Now, this isn't the mount that came with this frame. I really didn't like the adjustable mount that came with it. Actually, I'm not going to use this camera. I think I might need to make a mount for it. All the mounts I have seem to be designed for bigger cameras. Well, that's a dang shame. Here we go. Use this mount. Yes. Tight fit. There we go. This is like a fixed 45-degree mount. It's got a little bit of camera protection around it. Not a ton, but it should be more than we need. It's a pretty well protected frame as it is, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. Okay. Tight fit. There we go. Okay. So we got that mounted up. This does come with this big old pigtail here, but I don't know if I want to use that. If I'm just going to solder it directly to the flight controller or not. Not 100% sure on that one. Let's, I guess I gotta look up the wiring schematic for this thing. That's the thing I don't like about some of these iFlight stacks, is they don't include any sort of information on how to wire them up. Luckily the internet's pretty good about this stuff. Let's see, ground, okay. Pretty simple there. Alright, so it looks like it's gonna be, dang it, I already forgot. Ugh. So we're gonna go ground 5 volts in video. So. Come on. Man, that's tight. Should I keep the plug? Get rid of the plug. Keep the plug, get rid of the plug. YOLO, get rid of the plug. Snip this guy off of here. Bye-bye. Give this a little bit of a tin. There we go. All tinned up. Let's go ahead and hit these pads real quick. So, yep, nice clean tip. A little bit of solder for a bridge. And 1, 2, and 3. It's not super easy soldering this far away with a camera in front of me. Oh, it's these next big innovation FPV. It'll be being able to keep flying. Well, I mean, I'm assuming you're in the U.S., but if you're not, there's this wonderful organization called the FAA. They're being quite douchebags right now about anybody and everybody who flies anything. And I know with this virus thing going on that a lot of the forward momentum to keep the hobby rolling has, I mean, I haven't heard a lot from really either end of it, but you know damn well there's a government paid guy that is still trucking. He's telnetting, he's working from home, and he is gonna get that job done. Right. Okay, so those are all wired up there. Yeah, unfortunately it starts here and then it'll creep into your world. You know, and all this is to open the door for beyond line of sight unmanned flight. And I know quite a few pilots. Hell, even my wife's a pilot. It terrifies the crap out of them. Like, regular manned drones don't bother anybody. But the thought of somebody flying a drone that's nowhere near it to take action, because all these systems screw up. I mean, I'm in the aviation world too, and you have any idea how often our IFF or our ADSB type programs fail and quit working? We can still fly just fine without them. We're authorized to fly without them. You think your drone's gonna be working just fine? Because I mean, how are you gonna know it's not working until it's too late? All our systems show everything's working just fine, but we don't know that they're not until Tower tells us they can't get in hold of us, or other things like that happen. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with all that.
Did you know that Spotify is available on Google Home? You can ask your favorite little speaker to turn itself into a big old dance party just by using your voice.
Yeah, the FAs, like any other activist, they're any progressive movement, they just keep going. They don't stop. Because why would you? All right, let's move on to receiver time. Got all this stuff here. So I'm going to be using a TBS Unified Nano Pro for the VTX and Crossfire for the receiver. And I'm going to be mounting them all to this white noise mounting board here. So if you've never seen one of these, it's kind of neat. It's a pretty easy way to kind of wrangle those two components.
Great, I think we got it.
Yeah, this thing actually has like a pit switch on it, but I'm going to disable that stuff. I've never seen so many problems with quads as I have when it comes to dealing with pit switches. So it is something I don't want to deal with, and I don't find it necessary.
Connect with them where visual media can't. Try it today at adstudio.spotify.com or tap the banner to learn more.
Now you can remove these from the board afterwards if you decide you don't want to use it, but the board's pretty much trash at that point. They don't typically survive this process, or the removal process. At least in my experience, they don't. My multi-GP group was talking about doing like team races, and if we ever actually end up doing that, I would probably hook up the pit switch. But until that happens, I'm not gonna mess with it. Too many people I fly with have issues with pit switches. Actually, I take that back. Most of them had problems with pit switches that were built into the stupid Pyrodrone flight controllers. Whatever was in their pit switches could not handle 6S. And then everybody who's using that Talon F7, the twin gyro one, there's a ton of issues with that one too. You always got to punch in a bunch of different lines in beta code to actually get the dang thing to work, normally. The cutout on this board is a little on the big side, but I mean, connection's a connection. It's pretty light. I'm not too worried about it getting bounced around and getting damaged. Let's see, where's my receiver at? There it is. Yeah. VTX, good stuff. So, poster board, mounting putty, whatever you want to call it. Good stuff. Pretty useful. Oh, dang. Alright, so I just get one tacked in. I'll go ahead and I'll hold the other end with my hand. See how it's all cocked off to the side. I'll just heat that up again and straighten it out with my fingers. There we go, nice and straight. Alright. Alright. Safety squints. There we go. And time for the receiver. Get back here. Alright. So, once again, I'll just heat it back up with my finger on the board to kind of straighten it back out. There we go. Just want to get a nice, even gap between all the components there. Probably wouldn't be a terrible idea to wrap the underside of it with Captain tape, but I've never needed to before. I figure if I hit something hard enough to jostle this thing loose, it's probably the least of my worries. There we go. There is the receiver and the transmitter all kind of mounted up. And oh shoot, where'd my little button go? Little button. Put this. So this little itty bitty button that goes here. I've never needed it before, but why not, right? We're gonna do it. Let's do it. More solder. Okay. Where's my tweezers at? There we go. Okay. So that's kind of in place there. And normally I wouldn't have these little silicone grommets in here before I started, but well, I do. There we go. There's our little mode select button. It can be useful if for some reason you get stuck in pit mode. Some of these receivers are a real bear to get out with no button on them. The button is for selecting band channel, getting in and out of pit mode, and unlocking the VTX out of its stock configuration. You don't entirely need it, but I have been bit in the past by not having it. all the larger VTXs, they already have the button on there. For some reason, when companies sell VTXs, they lock them, and they lock channels, and they lock frequencies, or they lock channels and they lock power outputs, because they say you're supposed to have a ham operator's license to be able to unlock those channels. And I'm speaking from experience in the US. Anything that broadcasts that's not Part 51 certified, which definitely is not this stuff, you need to have a ham technician's license. There is no gray area on that. No, the vise just helps get me up off the silicone mat. This stuff doesn't stick to the mat very well. Actually, it doesn't stick at all whatsoever. So yeah, if you're in the US and you're operating anything that's not Part 51, which that's the nice thing about the DJI system and the Bite system, they're all Part 51. So unnecessary to have your Hamtech license for that. Hamtech license is actually pretty darn easy to get, so it's not like it's not a huge deal. But you know, it's just one of those minor annoyances you got to deal with. So the way this board is set up, you can use it to power your the pass-through for your camera. I don't really want to mess with that. I want to be able to just take this whole thing off and leave this mess in here. So I'm not going to use those. But on the side here, you have output 2 and 1 from your Crossfire, camera, audio, video, 5 volts, and ground. And there's our little bypass pads. We're going to go ahead and slaughter those up because I don't want to mess with the pin IO box and the pit switch mode functions. Just go ahead and bypass that stuff. There we go. So that right there, that disables the pit switch. Alright, so let's go ahead and tin up some of these pads on the side here that we're going to need to get at. So I got two options here. One, I can control smart audio through the Betaflight OSD, or I can do it through the Crossfire Lua. I'll be honest, I haven't used the Crossfire Lua to do this in a long time. I'm not 100% sure which way I want to go with that one. Alright, back to my wiring diagram here. You guys can come along with me. Alright, so we're going to need TBROS here. So that's our diagram guy here. So we're going to need, on the back here, we're going to need, so 5 volts ground, T1 R1. Okay, so these 4 pads here. No, not these 4 pads. These 4. So in an L shape there. All right. Again, I really wish it would just include like a pinout card. Extra shaky today, guys. All right, let's start. Shooting guns, flying drones, that sounds like a great time to me. No sarcasm whatsoever on that. Well, I mean, as long as the quad isn't shooting the gun, I don't see why not.
By staying home, you're doing your part to protect people from getting sick. By calling someone
So I like to work from the outside in.
putting a smile on their face.
These things
when
are
they need it.
far too long.
By being brave, you're helping us all be brave. Thank you for your help. You're making a big difference. Find ways to keep every child safe at unicefusa.org/COVID-19. That's unicefusa.org/COVID-19.
It's a ground connection.
Did you know that Spotify makes a playlist every week just for you?
Oh, I hear you, man.
Get a fresh playlist of 30 songs
We were doing
based
this
on others that you
stay-at-home
love.
Velocitron
It's
racing
released
series,
and you can
and you're
play it
thinking,
right
well, I'm
now.
just
But
flying a
remember, the
stupid
playlist
computer
changes every
simulator.
week,
Tell you
so if
what,
hear something
when
that
it's
pricks up your ears,
when you're up,
hit the heart button to easily find it again.
the
Tap the
competitive
banner to start
shakes
discovering.
that you get when you're flying at the field during race day. Oh yeah, they're there. Trust me. Well, at least they are for me, anyways. But I've never been that great of a racer. It's fun for me. I enjoy the getting out, hanging out with the buddies, flying, all that stuff. You know, I know damn well when I go to the field, I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, today's my day. I might come in first today. No, I'm far too old. I don't have the twitch hand-eye coordination anymore. Not that I really ever did. And I don't put the time and effort into practicing. But, you know, we got some guys that all they did was fly the sim for like 2 years. They started flying in real life for the first time, and apparently something translates. Either that or they're just naturally gifted at this. He's doing pretty good. Alright, so power ground and channel 1 and 2. Yeah, it's still fun. I mean, my biggest disappointment is when I DNF. Two biggest reasons I don't finish: one, slinging a battery, and two, clipping an antenna when I was running the long this style antenna for 900 megahertz. You lose about a quarter inch off of it, and you land in the grass. Good luck. You're not regaining. You're not coming back up. Yeah, it is hard to find time with the kid. I got a 6-year-old and a full-time job. Both of those are difficult to manage. Ramathorn, I'm in southern Alabama. Not entirely by choice. I'm here for work more than anything, but you know, gotta make the best of what you got. I've met a lot of really good friends here. My job makes me move every couple of years, and I usually don't hang out with a lot of people I work with. And this is about the first place I've been where I've actually made like lasting relationships outside of work, and it's all through this FPV community and teaching motorcycle safety. I'm a rider coach trainer for the MSF, that's the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, and I've met a lot of really cool cats doing that job. Also met a lot of real big douchebags doing that job too, but hey, you know, you take what you can get. Oh man, that's awesome that he just kind of picked it right up. I got my daughter one of the Emax Tiny Pilots. It's like their auto level kind of trainer brush drone. And I am just amazed at how quick my daughter picked that up. I've got a little like a 3 whoop gate tree, and she came down to the basement and just started crushing that thing. I'm like, oh, where did this come from? But not to minimize the accomplishment, you know, she's an auto level and all that stuff too, but you know, still, like, man. I remember when I got my first quad, an Eachine Wizard X220. You couldn't look at that thing sideways without blowing the props in 20 pieces and the VTX failing on it. Even the goggles that came with that thing are just way better than they should have been. Way better. Yeah, bikes and drones. And I tell you what, it's been a while since I've ridden my bike. My bike and my wife's bike have fuel issues right now. Well, at least my wife's did. Had to replace a fuel pump in a 09 GS 1200, which was weird. And that's the second BMW I've had that's kind of left me stranded with fuel issues. And then my bike's missing real bad. I think I got a bad load of fuel the last time I filled up before the end of last year. Yeah, the Easy Pilot kit, that's it. Well worth every penny if you're trying to get anybody into this hobby. Even just having the goggles afterwards, they're a great ride-along set. They're way sharper and nicer than like the Eachine equivalents. At least they have a focus adjustment for the Fresnel lens inside of them. Alright, so there is my... I hope I've been in frame, because I haven't had that screen up. So, alright. By the way, I'm working on a one PC setup right here, so I'm kind of back and forth between screens. So I have ground and 5 volts, and from UART 1, I have channel 1 and channel 2. So this should satisfy my receiver requirements for connection to the flight controller, and this is my power and ground to power the receiver and the video transmitter. Now we need to pick up camera and video and audio. So back to the interwebs. All right, so I shouldn't have put that camera back on yet. I know it's gonna have to get back in here. Come on, get out of there. Man, that's a tight fit. Not got to worry about that coming off on its own. All right, so looking at this, we're gonna need video out is gonna be third pad over right here next to the camera in, so that's video out. Let's get ourselves a video wire. By the way, I'm not really abiding by any sort of standard color, whatever. I don't care. I'm just going to grab whatever wire I have laying around. I might actually have to move that wire here. So I'm going to have to move these. Every build I have where I'm like, oh man, this is going to be super clean. Yeah, this is where it kind of goes to shit. That's what I like about the DJI system. Is like, it's just, for the most part, it's just plug and play. It looks so clean to set up. And the next one over is going to be our smart audio. So we'll go with white. Alright, lots of that. And that's going to be UART 2, if anybody's building the same thing I'm doing here. All right, back to the chat here. Hey Snoots, thanks a lot for the super chat there. I very much appreciate it. If anybody else is interested in supporting me, not that I'm asking you to, but if you want to, I do sell laser cut grips for FPV radios over on my Etsy store. Take a look down in the video description there. I'll give you a link to my Etsy shop. I am also partnered up with another YouTuber, Aaron Ciotti, Ciotti FPV. If you haven't heard of him, and if you haven't heard of him and you've heard of me, I find that, well, I guess that's just lack of self-esteem there, but I find that funny. But I also cut grips for him that in his own kind of special chosen color. Jeez, I can't remember if it's camera or video. Oh, darn it, you have to look at the stupid webpage. But I give him grips for him to give away on his live streams, and you know, word of mouth gets this thing around. He's a super energetic, real cool dude. And unfortunately, he has just recently lost his job, so should be seeing some really cool stuff come out of him. I think he's going to try offsetting his income with more YouTube content. He does a lot of live streams. I don't know, let's see where I get these things. See, you know, as many times as I've done this, it's not like I just instinctively know where everything goes. Always got to look it up. Never trust your memory. Oh boy, that is the classiest wire diagram I have ever seen. Oh, I like that. That's pretty cool. Alright, so we're going to V. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know exactly where Mayan High is from, but it's definitely somewhere not in America. I know that means a lot of different places, but he's part of like the European Drone Alliance racing league over there.
You can listen to shows from
All
the
right,
worlds of
so that's it.
comedy,
So the
politics,
C pad
entertainment,
here would be
sports,
camera out
business,
to the flight
apps,
controller. That's if I
the
was going to
business
use
of
these
cats who love
pads here on the
sports.
side
Just about anything your heart desires.
for
Whatever your niche,
ground 5 volts and
Spotify
camera
has the podcast for
connection.
you.
So if I
Click the
was
banner
using
to
this
check
to
out
connect
what's
my
streaming
camera,
right now.
I would be going into here from the camera, out from here into the flight controller, out from the flight controller and into the video. So once it goes out from here into the flight controller and the OSD chip overlays the graphical text and then spits it out of that pad there. So that is pretty much all my connections. So I can turn my soldering iron off, I hope. Okay, so here's a tip just for the tip, mind you. Clean your tip off really good. So hit it with the copper scouring pad that you got. Put a big old nasty blob of solder on it so it looks something kind of like, oh, I'm gonna burn myself here, something like that, and then just turn it off. You want to leave that big caked up blob of solder on there to keep oxygen from getting to the tip, and it'll keep it from oxidizing, and it'll make it last much longer. Now I could go around and hook up the camera control, but this doesn't have a yeah, this one doesn't use a UART interface for the camera control, so it uses the old like analog camera control, and it's kind of hit or miss whether it works. And this has got a nice little breakout cable, so I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to run it like so. And now we can finish fastening down our stack here. More M2 nuts. These aren't nylon, these are like polycarbonate. I think these are the ones that came with the iFlight stack. All right, Snoots. See you around later. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it, buddy. Now, earlier tonight, helped a guy out over in the EU somewhere, dealing with his X9D 2019 radio and trying to bind to an SPI receiver. I think it was on a Mobula 7. Haven't really messed with that too much, and the D16 LBT mode was just not working out for him, so sounds like we got him switched over to FCC, which I know is not the right way to do it, but hey, it got him up and running, so I'm not too worried about it. This is not threading on here. What the heck? There we go. Now, all this access stuff, man, that first guy's really made a mess of everything. Really like all their tech, and I understand what they're doing. They're trying to move the hobby along, but they're just doing it in a really funky way. All right, so I didn't put any nuts at the bottom of my hardware stack, and that's got way too much jiggle to it. So I'm gonna have to take this all back apart and put some nuts at the bottom there. I don't know why I didn't do that. I almost always do. Thought maybe I'd get away with it this time. Sometimes you can do it with M3, but with the holes in the frame being M3 holes, and I'm using M2 hardware, just not going to work out. Boots, how you doing, buddy? How's the weather where you're at? All right, Ramathorn. We'll see you around, buddy. Hit me up if you're interested in that that soldering practice board if you're in the U.S. I remember you saying you were a little apprehensive to stick an iron to your first job. Hit me up, tweetfpv@gmail.com. So I certainly don't need it. Hate access, switched over to Crossfire and used the T16. T16 is a decent radio. I saw Grayson Hobby. They're a local hobby shop in the U.S. here that actually sells FPV related stuff and doesn't look at you like you're insane when you ask them about it, which is pretty rare. And they tease something about a T18, which I've never seen before from Jumper. Yeah, it's getting warm where I'm at too. Luckily, it's not as hot as it was in prior years, but it's still too hot. I don't like the heat. I'm not built for it. All right. You know, quad building, you do it the right way. You're definitely taking like 4 steps back every time. I don't know if these spacers are going to work out for me here. Might have to ditch these. Yeah, it's so rare to find a hobby shop that actually caters to this hobby. I went into Hobby Lobby once, and they're a nationwide chain, and they had like a Detroit Multi-Rotors bullpup, just the frame sitting in their counter, and they wanted $100 for the frame. Anytime you go in there, you're like, hey, I need a FR Sky receiver, and they just laugh at you like, no, Spectrum's the best thing in the world. Why would you want anything else? And you know, you ask them for like a VTX or lipos or anything, and as soon as they find out you're not talking about flying a fixed wing, man, they throw you some shitty attitude, and they just walk away from you. So there's a term in the firearms world called FUDs. So it's old dudes that are all for having firearms, but only if they're long rifles for hunting and shotguns. Anything else they feel that it shouldn't be around. Hobby Lobby around here is my equivalent to a FUD. Or not Hobby Lobby, but Hobby Town. Yeah, James, so I mean, at least we've got a couple really good FPV shops that ship across the country. We've got Pyrodrone, Get FPV, and Race Day Quads. I mean, I get a lot of shit for pushing Banggood all the time, but Banggood caters to the entire country, or the entire world. And, you know, they're like a good window shopping experience. Like, you can tell somebody what it is you're looking for or what they should get, and you link them to Banggood, because Banggood has everything, or at least they have a listing for everything. And from there, they can go and figure out where they're best at, where's the best place for them to go and get the product that you're linking them to. So that's kind of nice thing about Banggood, but I don't know how they do shipping. Like, shipping outside of the US is just insane. Like, sending a 3-ounce package to Canada it's like $13. Siberia? Whoa, man. Firearms guy? Yeah, I guess. I used to be big into firearms before I moved from northern Michigan to Alabama. I figured moving to Alabama, there'd be you know, banjos playing and firearms firing all the time. Boy, I was very, very surprised once I got down here. It's not as much as I thought it would be. Northern Michigan was definitely more of a redneck place than where I'm at now. There was a gentleman that God, sorry guys. There's a gentleman that contacted me from India, and he was constantly asking me, hey, how do I build a tiny hawk? How do I build this? And I'm like, man, just buy one. Well, after about 5 or 6 exchanges, I found out that he can't import any drones. You can't import drones to India, but he could import all the parts he wanted. So like the Tiny Hawk 2 came out, he really wanted to build one, but couldn't get a frame for it because, well, Emax didn't release the replacement frames for quite a while. And he said he has like family in the US that'll strip down drones and send them to pieces so he can put them all back together. So I mean, it could be an entire drone in a box in pieces, and it's fine, but if it shows up assembled, when it gets to customs, it gets confiscated. Pretty crazy. That is much better now. Stiffen her right up. I think CNHL ships worldwide. I don't know what happens when they get to customs. That's something we don't really deal with here in the U.S. is customs and import duties on this types of stuff, which is kind of nice. There we go. That's way better. All right, I'll put this camera back on for like the 5th time. Get in there. There we go. Okay. So now we have to mount up our crossfire antenna. So this is the VAS, the Video Arrow System. It's their flat 915 megahertz antenna. Let's see, boots. Yeah, I built some AR-15, things like that. I have a decent collection. Yeah, I was big into that stuff when I lived in northern Michigan. I've got a couple class 4 items. I've built my own suppressors. You know, I was really kind of into the hobby, but you know, change of venue. Plus, it's hot as hell all the time here. I don't know. I'm getting old, fat, and lazy. Definitely old and fat. Just don't want to deal with the heat as much as I used to. Yeah, there's a couple guys on the Facebook Marketplace that they don't live in the U.S., but they snatch up or they do live in the U.S. and they snatch up all the used FPV gear, like all the good stuff, and they send them back to India, like I was saying before, because they just can't buy that stuff there. I guess it's cheaper to have friends and family mail it back home. Things like that I take for granted. Like I never even think about what it would take to do hobbies like this in other countries. And I don't know if you've heard of Michael Rollins. He's got like an interview show. He was interviewing a lady that she's like the head of the Mexico National Drone League, something or other. She has got some freaking wild stories about being just robbed at gunpoint while they're out flying and stuff like that. Just nuts stories. There we go. James, unfortunately, I don't know what you mean because I haven't found a single local shop that I can talk to face to face and they understand what I'm talking about. Like I said, they all speak fixed wing. Like the fixed wing hobby in the brick and mortar world in the U.S. is pretty prevalent, and it's, you know, no offense, but it's, you know, it's older gentlemen that fly fixed wing for the most part. And I know I'm making a pretty broad assumption there, but for the most part, that's the clientele. That's Spectrum's clientele as well, and all they carry is Spectrum and fixed wings. So there's not a lot of like face-to-face interaction, brick and mortar stores that you can go to in each town that sells this kind of stuff. But I mean, if you lived in like Orlando, Florida, yeah, you've got Rotor Riot, or not Rotor Riot, but Race Day Quads and Get FPV. There's a guy that I knew that lived in Texas that started a drone store. It was just an online thing, and he started getting into it. And I think he made it maybe a year of doing online sales, and he had to fold up. He couldn't compete with the big chain retailers or with the Chinese retailers like Banggood. But he was always first to get stuff, and he was always doing a lot of like group buys. Kind of missed that shop. Real cool dude. Defiance RC. Oh yeah, you're right. Defiance RC is in Alabama. They're up in Montgomery. I totally forgot about them. I have never really ordered from them until just recently. But somehow my order from California makes it here faster than Defiance RC. They're not very quick, or at least in my experience, a few times I order from them, they're not very quick to process your order. Which, I mean, that is what it is. I'm not knocking them for that. Well, maybe I am a little bit, but I don't mean it to be like that. Alright, there is my two antennas, all wired up. Get a nice tight shot there. This is kind of a shit show right here, but that will be fine, and I'm not too worried about it, especially with the box frame. I'm not too worried about that getting ripped off. So we'll go ahead and mount these things, and this is the actual antenna fixing glue that all the manufacturers use on their antennas. So this is the real deal stuff. Oh man, it smells good too. But it is an aerobic sealant or adhesive, so it does need air to cure, and it does cure pretty quick. It's also pretty hard to keep it from curing in the tube. You got to squeeze out every last little bit of air. I know I'm making a big mess of this. Sorry guys, my shmoo applying ability is not. I don't have my A game on today. So what did I get from them recently? I've got a TBS Fusion from them. which it's turned out to be a pretty good little module. Oh man, I made a mess of this. Throw an SMA nut on there, just kind of hold it all in place. Yeah, E6000 is pretty good. I find it sometimes, well, not so much on this stuff, but on the higher powered VTXs, they get a bit on the hot side for E6000. But in a pinch, if you didn't have the actual emotive cement that I got, that would be my next choice, is E6000. This glue is on its way out. It's kind of drying up. Hey Daniel, how's it going? Yeah, you know what? You're right. Good call, man. That would have been a freaking mess. Someone's paying attention. Daniel for the win. That's full brightness. He's one of the locals here, but he did catch that I connected my VTX antenna to my Crossfire. And I did again. Yep, you're right. They were crossed. Hey Daniel, excited about Saturday? You gonna get out to the field and fly? Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate it. All right, big old wad of snot there. Yeah, I hear you. Finally going back to work, which, you know, not that I missed being out of work, but, you know, it's something to do in the afternoons, I guess. So there's that. Everything should be pretty much wired up. Find a lipo. Boots, yeah, that is the antenna fixing glue. It's This thing, the Motive RC antenna fixing glue, this is the same stuff that FR Sky uses. But it dries quick, you know. This tube's about done. Even though it's half used, it's getting dried up. Alright, so everything's hooked up. Should be good to go. Alright. 1, 2, 3, no smoke. Cool. Well, that is that. Thanks, Boots. It's been a fun build. It's definitely not the easiest build. Alright. Let's get this guy out here.
Welcome to Tango 2. Timer 1 elapsed.
Now let's see if we can bind this thing up here. That is the nice thing about Crossfire, is you don't have to do the whole hold it and bind at the same time thing. So bound, and now it's updating the firmware. Let's give that a minute. Grab a set of goggles. Or there we go, and we got video.
Telemetry lost.
Oh, what did I do there?
RF signal critical. Telemetry recovered.
There we go. So that's all set up. Receiver's bound. VTX is transmitting. I still got to go into beta flight and do all the configgy stuff there. Yeah, you know what? Crossfire binding is really good, but I've been using Access a lot as well, and the Access OTA, in my opinion, is actually better than the Crossfire binding. It's actually a lot easier, and like anytime you make a change in your Crossfire transmitter, it doesn't carry over to your receiver, so then you have to redo the bind process. The FR Sky OTA things carry all the changes over to every receiver that was registered to that transmitter, and it is a super cool feature. I had a couple, I had 2 different Access receivers, or Access radios, and being able to pass models from one radio to the other is actually
Receiver still connected.
kind of a cool feature. It works out way better than I thought it would be. Flashing new firmwares using the OTA protocol and Access, super easy. It's not as it's not as automated as the Crossfire stuff is, which I kind of like that a little bit better, because you do have to go in and select the firmware you want and tell it to flash, rather than just going, hey, flash this. So there we go. That's set up there. Let's go ahead and get this top plate on. Camera down a little bit more. So something to note about this frame is when you buy it, it doesn't come with long enough hardware to mount the top plate with the flip stick that comes with it. The flip stick was an add-on. Hey, Night Train, don't worry, this will all come back up as DVR footage when I'm done tonight. You can follow along there. And then if you have any questions, put them down in the comments of the video. I'll get right back to you. Or what's even better is go over to my Discord and sign up there. The way YouTube tracks chats for content creators friggin' sucks. It is so hard to follow a chat. Like, I'll get a notification when someone comments for the first time on a video, but never again. And I have to specifically go and look up that conversation, see if anybody actually commented. And the app is garbage, but Discord is definitely the way to do it. So anyways, that is that. Make sure we're not touching it all. And we're just barely clearing on the stack screws. I'll probably take and trim those down with my my universal screw fitter. These things are awesome. I'll probably go and just trim those M2 screws down so they're not sticking up any higher than they have to be. And that'll be that. So I think that is, I think that's gonna be a good place to stop for today. So this thing is completely built, but it's not ready to fly. We still have to get into beta flight and the BL Heli 32 and get everything set up. And I think I'll leave that for the next video. I think the wife wants to talk tonight a little bit anyways. So I think I'm gonna leave it here. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the live stream build process I got going on here. Just trying to do something a little bit different. I'll be honest, making these live streams is it's easier than cutting and splicing and prepping a video for YouTube. And I actually kind of like the live interaction I'm getting with you guys. A lot of good questions, and I hope you guys. Oh, let's see. Mini Me, do you use Crossfire Shot? I believe it's yes, I am. With the Tango 2, I don't think you have an option not to. I used to use Crossfire back maybe 4 years ago, and Trappy started being a D-bag, so I dumped Crossfire and went with R9 because it works it performs exactly the same, and it was way cheaper at the time. The only reason I'm back to Crossfire is because I have the Tango 2 and I absolutely love that radio. But anyways, I forgot what I was saying, but thanks for following along. I really enjoy interacting with you guys. If you want to go back and review this, it'll be back up probably in about an hour. You can go back and view the DVR of this. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. If you want to have a little more in-depth troubleshooting, or you want to get hold of me, and go ahead and head over to Discord. If you're interested in the things that I make, like these pretty badass radio grips, head over to my Etsy shop. I like to make cool shit and put it on the internet for you guys. I don't make a whole lot on them, but they seem to bring people a lot of enjoyment and actually a little bit of security with their radios flying around. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out, and I will see you next time. Hopefully you guys can get out and fly soon, and stay safe. Oh, this is always the most awkward part. It's just finding that end button. See you guys.